The best of the Morning X. 99X.
Got a great story, fantastic story, about a friend of ours. And his name is Steve Ehretsman. Steve works for Budweiser. He is the director.
He is Budweiser.
He is Budweiser. Well,
he is the Bud in Budweiser.
I would argue that Crash is Budweiser.
Well, that's true.
Steve is his supplier.
Steve is the director of corporate marketing for Budweiser. And let me describe Steve Ehretsman for you. Steve is a guy who, talking all-American stud, 6'6", 240 pounds, played high school and college sports, basketball, was a six handicap golfer, which if you don't play golf, that is exceptionally good. That means that he would routinely shoot in the 70s. Just a phenomenal athlete, great guy, big strapping, all-American.
Dude's like all-American, good-looking stud, big guy.
Great guy, and a great guy to boot. About 18 months ago, Steve was at a fast food restaurant, and he was walking from the restaurant to his car, and a kid who was just learning how to drive apparently stepped on the gas instead of the brake at some point and ran into Steve as he was walking and pinned him between two bumpers, crushing his leg, breaking his other leg, and crushing his foot. Steve went through a number of surgeries, maybe 10, 15 surgeries, and each time there was a complication. I mean, it was one of these things where it went from bad to worse, because when you, I guess, reconstruct like something like your foot, I mean, you're dealing with infection, you're dealing with all kinds of things that can go wrong. They had to, at one point, lop off his toes. They had to remove his toes because they were infected. And then time went on, another operation or two, and they had to take off the foot, and so on and so forth. Eventually, it got to the point where Steve had to have his entire leg below the knee amputated. So a situation that went from horrible went to really tragic for this guy. And the only thing that saved his life was the fact that being 6'6", the bumper of the car hit him in the leg. Had he been shorter, had he been, say, my height, the car obviously would have been higher up on his body.
Would have been dead.
Probably wouldn't have lived.
Crush your vital organs.
Right, exactly. Bled to death, whatever. So Steve went through a series of these operations and gradually grew stronger. He was walking, obviously, with crutches. He had one leg. And, in fact, was at the point where he was able to swing a golf club with one leg. If you can imagine this, he would step up to the ball, and he would hit the ball with standing on one leg, and on the follow-through, hop over. Because the weight, your weight shifts, like when you're swinging a baseball bat.
God, how do you learn to do that?
Your weight shifts from the back to the front, and he would go out of the range. He'd play golf on one leg.
You have to invent that himself. I take it there's not a video that teaches you how to do that.
I don't know.
I mean, I don't know if they're selling the, one-leg golf with success video. I mean, how do you do that?
So not long ago, maybe a few months ago, Steve finally got a prosthetic foot or leg, and it's one of those kind of, it's like the shoe, it's metallic. It's like a pole that hooks up into the knee, and then at the bottom there's a foot. So if he's wearing long pants, you can't tell the difference. He limps, but you can't tell, and he's still getting used to it because it's they're still very
imagine
rudimentary, those things.
They're trying to walk with something that you don't have any feeling in.
No, it's very weird. But he has just over the last few months learned how to do it. Last Thursday, you heard me talking about that Grip It and Rip It golf tournament. Steve shot a 77.
Wow.
Shot a 77. Now, that is one of the most, is that inspiring or what? Steve's with us. How you doing?
Good, Jimmy.
That is inspiring.
Hey, Steve.
My favorite morning show.
Yeah, there you go.
Atlanta.
Steve, how long have you had the new foot?
I've had the new leg for about 3 months now, and actually I'm going to see a new doctor today to hopefully get a new kind of more revised and more kind of techno-savvy, a little bit lighter and all that leg, which I'm very, very excited for, to hopefully get off these crutches one day.
How have you stayed positive through this whole thing, Steve? Because, just the bad news after bad news after bad news.
It's something where you just have to go through it in your own different ways. I mean, Barnes, if you have got a couple of bad tennis games, you got to get through it, and you got to make sure you play the next game, to your best. So for me, I went through some serious depression and all that kind of stuff over the summer, and am now realizing that it's basically what I've got to live, and I'm not going to sit on my couch and eat bonbons every day. It's enough, as an inspiration to go out and try to beat Jimmy on the golf course, and I was very lucky to beat him.
Lucky, let me tell you. The guy. Forget about it. Talk about when the accident first happened.
Sure.
And you touched on the fact that you went through depression.
Yep.
Right after the accident. Well, did it even cross your mind that you could lose your leg?
The idea of losing a leg was not really anything in my mind at all. I just thought that I would potentially have some serious stuff go wrong with my left leg, because I had about I'd say a 13-inch incision from my calf all the way down to my ankle, and it was wide open and stuff. And my right foot was just crushed kind of in the middle of the foot. I still had toes and all that, and they had a bunch of pins and stuff coming out of the toes. But I really had no idea I was going to eventually lose a leg. And as you said, Jimmy, I went through a bunch of surgeries, and each time it was just kind of one of those where they took some more and more and more. So, with anesthesia and all that, and I was on a severe amount of pain medicine, I really didn't know my ups and downs, as a full sense. But at the end, when they finally said, "Listen, the best thing for you to do to get on with life and to kind of get back in the sports mentality and just basically kind of get through things and live life again is to cut off your leg," that's when it really basically hit me. And that was it was the first week in April. And I ended up having it done April 15th. And I just had to find, in a cheesy way, but you guys, I think, will understand, you have to find your inner strength through this whole thing.
Here's a dumb question.
Sure, go ahead.
Completely dumb question. What do they do with your leg when they cut it off?
Barnes, that's a good question. I don't know. That's I really don't know.
Where do they go? I mean,
it's a good. I really don't want to see the thing, but
do they use it to examine and maybe learn? I mean, what do they do with your leg?
They could have used it to learn, because I had through all the times in bad circulations and all that, I developed what they call osteomyelitis, which is bone infection, and that's one of the reasons why, if not the main reason why, I had to get the leg cut. So I had to get away. They had to cut high enough to get away from the bone infection that would basically eat up your leg.
Now, the times I've been around you, Steve, you've always been really positive and an upbeat person.
Yep.
I've never seen you be down about this.
Ever.
What was the one thing, was there one thing that got you out of the depression?
I'll tell you this, honest to God, and I mean this wholeheartedly to you guys too, it was just friends. I mean, you grow and appreciate things every time, and I think once you have diversity, you grow and appreciate things, even the smallest things, a lot more. And I have some of the greatest friends, and I'm very, very fortunate to have that. And they have been there for everything. That's including you guys too. I mean, it really, what you realize is anytime someone says something positive about you, that you looked great today, or that you seem like you're walking around a little bit, or I can't believe you played golf this way, all that stuff is like food for energy, and it makes you grow more positive with the whole situation you have. Since I played college hoops, I'm not good enough to play Barnes yet on the tennis court. But
what's funny is we had a tennis match scheduled right before this happened.
Exactly.
Really?
And I was very leery of playing. I'll play you now.
Well, the funny thing is, I was shooting baskets a little bit on one leg, because you basically have to find things internally. You've got to find things you can do again. So proving to yourself that you can actually hit a tennis ball again, proving yourself you can hit a golf ball again, proving yourself you can shoot a basket again. You've got to do those things, or really it screws up your mind a little bit, because you don't think that you're like you were before. So the scary thing is, Barnes and I did have a tennis match set up, and I even talked to Steve. You remember that? I even talked to you in the hospital.
Yeah, no, you called and said, "Hey, something happened." I was like, "Oh my God!"
Yeah.
I had no idea it was this serious, and I don't think you knew at the time that it was going to end up being like this either.
Didn't know.
Well, what was it a decision you had when they came and said you should amputate your leg, and you had to think about it, or?
It went through after a bunch of the surgeries initially. I lost 2 toes in the beginning, then I lost 2 more toes, and then I lost some knuckles in the foot. This is all on the right foot. They finally had said, just on the look of the foot, that there's no circulation going down to the mid part of the foot, that they finally just went, we got to cut off half your foot. They call that a transmetatarsal. So I had half a foot, and I went out and kind of played a little golf and all that kind of stuff, and started walking around a little bit without crutches, and thought my life was okay. I knew it was going to have some changes to it, but I thought I'd be okay with things. And then I developed, when I started walking around some more, quite a bit of pain in the foot that I couldn't ignore. And your pain tolerance goes up quite a bit, or at least I'm hoping it has. And I just couldn't ignore it. They finally went back to the doctor a couple times. They cut the foot back open and said, you still have bone infection in there. So with that, they went, you can have one of 3 amputations. One kind of that cuts down by the ankle, one that cuts a little bit more of the foot, and that would basically just have a tad bit of your foot left, and one that they call below the knee amputation, or BKA, and that's for the most mobility for my future life. As far as playing sports or as far as just getting around and all that, they said the BKA is the best thing. So.
Wow.
Well, Steve, it's an incredible story, and I'm glad that you're back, and your spirit has not changed one bit. If not, it's probably gotten better.
Thank you. I'll tell you this. It's just something that has made me grow to appreciate things a lot more, and I've got to live with it. It's done something that I think is a good, positive thing for me.
Well, we look forward to seeing you soon, Steve.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
The best of the Morning X. 99X.